Nicaragua first. So we as a community support one of our members, Peter Schaller, who runs a nonprofit in Nicaragua called Rayo de Sol. And so Peter Schaller, you're up first from Nicaragua.
All right, thank you. Nick, that was great. I really appreciate your sharing this time with us, and I'm really excited to read your book. This is going to be a little tricky because I've probably got about 10 questions rolled into one. So I've been working in international development for the past 25 years or so. I'll see if I can be a little bit concise. So at the beginning, you were talking about, how do you get people to take that leap from being concerned with local issues to thinking about things internationally. And the only really way to do that is by creating empathy in people. I don't think everybody is necessarily born with a sufficient dose of empathy, but it's a learned behavior. So I'm just curious if in Global Citizen, that's an element of your work, is trying to stimulate and promote empathy in people. And then just to tag a question along to that, I'm also curious about how you select where you make investments. At our organization, we changed our language several years ago to encourage our donors to invest, not to make donations or charitable charitable giving. We use the word investment. And the truth of it is, and a lot of people on the call might not know this, I'm sure you do, that most development projects fail. The vast majority of development projects fail. I'm surrounded by failed development projects, abandoned infrastructure, training programs that lets in. So I'm just curious about your criteria when you select beneficiaries, organizations, that might be doing local works. How you can't guarantee success, obviously, but what's your formula for refining your investment strategy to assure that the highest rate of success possible?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. On the first question around the extension of empathy and how do you get people to care, I think we recognized early on that, one of my co-founders, he was motivated by his faith. He went and spent a year in Mother Teresa's school, and he said, I'm going to dedicate my whole life to this issue, right? Great. Good for him. Most people aren't like that. And for the vast majority of people out there, that image of, the person doing this and, they're also repenting the whole time. And, the fact that to make a difference often comes at great personal sacrifice. The vast majority of society aren't like that, right? Many people want to make a difference, but they also want to watch sport at the same time. They want to listen to their favorite bands, the music. They want to engage in culture. And I do think there's a yearning to also interact. People want community as well. And so for us at Global Citizen, it was really the recognition that where do we meet our audiences where they're at and then bring them along on the journey, rather than getting all angry and saying, why doesn't 99% of the population think the way we do? Why isn't 99% of the population willing to, I guess, give up their day jobs, volunteer overseas, or give away all of their money? And so it's really that sense, with Global Citizen was, like we can bring people along. People want to be rewarded. They love being thanked for their efforts. And that's if we can give them a ticket to a great show, but we also want to give them a pathway to take action. And what's really cool now with Global Citizen is having this movement for the better part of a decade and a half, is I've now met high school students. So I've met university students who got engaged in their early years of high school, did their school projects on the issues because of what they found on Global Citizen. And now this is shaping the vocations that they pursue through university. So I do think it's possible to give people that broader perspective, but build in platforms where they're at. I still remember being in Glasgow a few years ago for the big climate talks. And there was these two activists in front of me, because there was a long line of people who were having this fight or argument. And one was saying, this is crazy. We're here, we're literally competing for the same space, the same interviews, and the same audiences. And what happened? When we got into the conference center, there were all of these panel discussions. There were like maybe one person in the audience for each of them. And this other activist said, that's why we should be building platforms. That's why we should be reaching people where we are. Going to Rotary clubs, going to community groups, investing in e-games and meeting people where they're at. And that really reinforced to me about the work we do at Global Citizen. I think the second question, you know, your idea of investing, where do we decide? You know, and I talk about this in the book as well. Well, that image that the advocate, right, has to be staffed of resources, or to make a difference, you have to give up all of these sacrifices. I would say that image actually acts as a handbrake on philanthropic investment in much of the big systemic groundbreaking work. And what I mean by that, and you know, Dan Pallotta talks about this in his book, The Uncharitable Myth, right? He talks about the myth of the overhead, the idea that investing in salaries, investing in marketing, even if it has all this high return, you know, isn't something that people should be engaging in. And really, the point I make in the book is that people who are engaging in policy, entrepreneurs, you know, citizen advocates, and let's be clear, citizen-led advocacy is key to delivery. You can have all the money in the world, but unless you have accountability, right, citizen-led accountability, you know, you're not going to drive real change. And so my challenge to philanthropy has been, if you really care about systemic change, invest in the capacity of nonprofits to genuinely pursue policy entrepreneurship, and don't try and invest in these gotcha moments. Don't try and give, you know, bad, you know, old formulaic ways of measuring impact, but come together in partnership. And when I say invest in capacity, that's often the human potential of people as well, because that stigma is still out there, and it needs to be addressed in much the same way we value teachers, we value nurses, we value doctors. We should be valuing those entrepreneurs who are driving change as well. So, and for philanthropy, if you really want to act as a force multiplier and leverage your influence, then this is one great way to do that. And I've written about this in other spaces. I've written several articles every given Tuesday on my Forbes.com column, but it's something I'm really passionate is how do we change the mindset of philanthropy.
I would love to connect with you directly. I will, send you a message after this. If there are a couple minutes at the end, I will ask one more question, but I will succeed right now to others that might want to have questions as well.
Thanks, Peter.